Assalamualaikum and a good day, everybody. Okay, we continue with this transport in vascular plant. Okay, so for lecture outline on this topic, all right, we are going to focus on two important things. Is that how the uptake and transport of water and mineral as well as transport of organic substances. This is actually article is a further elaboration of what we have learned in Form 5 regarding how water is being transported through xylem and also the organic solute or organic substances being translocated through phlegm. Okay, so we're going to go into this. But first, before we actually go through the deeper into the notes and everything, I want you to recall back and see how is the questions looks like for this particular topic. So in bring home assignment or revision, which I've already prepared for earlier on regarding past this question, these are some of the question, the question format which has been produced, okay, for over the years. So you have to familiarize with some of the terms and the keywords that we're going to be explained on this. For example, what is cohesion, adhesion? It's basically what you have learned already in part 1. And then also how does water uptake and transport being carried out from the roots to the leaf, okay? And then external factors that have influenced plant transpiration. Yes, we are going to learn about transpiration rate as well, okay? And then what are the forces involved in order to move water and also to move the organic solute, right? And also important terms like, for example, Casparian strip. So these are the things that you need to familiarize with, which I'm going to explain later on. Then this is another set of questions that you may also need to recall back and then prepare. If you can do this for your revision, it will be very good already. Yeah? Right. So for introduction, basically you have gone through already how does the body plan looks like, right? They divided into two systems, shoot system and the root system. From there also you learn about how they divided further into vascular bundle, vascular tissue, dermal tissue and also ground tissue, right? Okay, so now uh, how does the transport occur? It occurs in three scale. You have to imagine, you have to do a little bit of zooming in and zooming out, looking from the smallest part of the plant to the biggest version of the plant itself. So transport of water and solute carried out by individual cells such as root hair and also can also carry out in two types of distance, short and long distance. Short distance normally involve from cell to cell at the level of tissue and organ, whereas for long distance normally will be carried out between xylem and phloem at the level of the whole plant itself. Yeah. So this is one of the summarized version of how physical processes involve in different types of transport. Okay, so basically if you try to recall what you have learned, okay, we all know that when there is soil, usually soil contains water, right? And how does the water from the soil be absorbed by the plant? Okay, usually through the help of the root hair just now from the roots. And the water and minerals goes in from the soil to the root upwards, okay, the one in blue color, depending on the leaf itself. When the leaf undergoes transpiration, okay, with the help of stomata, right? When there's water loss, it will give what they call a pressure, okay, asking the water from below at the root to go up in order to to compensate what is lost up there. Yeah? Right? So same goes what is going down is basically is about how when sugar or what they say is being made, right? Glucose is being made from the leaf, okay? It is called at the source. It has to go and loaded into the sink and store. Okay, so this is how the whole issue is all about. Now we talk about water uptake. Water and mineral salt usually enter the plant through the epidermis of the roots and then ultimately flow to the shoot system. Okay, very simple as that. And then how does this happen? How do they move? What kind of pathway do they have? Alright. Now if you look carefully on my slide here, you will also see some terms like BHA. BHA means the bring home assignment just now. So when it comes to BHA 15 means you refer to question number 15. Then they will ask us a question. This question normally this is the answer here from this slide. So there are three routes are available for the movement of water and solute. Okay, which are simplastic, apoplastic, and vacuolar route. Okay, ingat beza If you want to stick to simplas pun boleh, then the next one should be apoplas. Okay, so let's say we look at simplas route. What are they? Actually, it's a solute or water that move from cell to cell. Okay, via the plasmodesmata. Via the plasmodesmata, the connection between one cell to another cell. If you learn this already in plant eukaryotic cell, part 1, plasmodesmata is a junction, right? And then we also have apoplast route, whereby the solute in water passes through where? Through the cellulose cell wall. Cellulose cell wall here, right? So from one cell to another cell without entering the cell itself. Okay, right? And lastly, we have vacuolar route, whereby water and solute passes through the cytoplasm and the vacuole from one cell to another. Ini semua terjah je lah. Okay, right. Now, before we would go further, you have to remember important parts of the plant that play a role in this pathway just now. Now, we know this term called endodermis. Where is this endodermis located? Okay, it's actually the innermost layer of the cell in the root cortex. At the root area there, you know this is the cortex, right? And then this is the inner lining here. It's called the endodermis. So this endodermis plays a role by surrounding the vascular cylinder, which contain the xylem and the phloem, right? And also function as a last checkpoint. So this is a monocot, right? Still remember? Okay, bertabur kan, random dia punya benda tu. Tapi kalau tengok kat bahagian root tu, there is a displacement of xylem and phloem. Bang pula. Okay, we continue with it. Okay, now, how water cross the cortex? Okay, again, question, refer back to the big home assignment, number 4 and 7. This is the answer that you should do. First, normally they will ask you to draw. If there is ask you to draw, you draw. Draw very simple sahaja, just to show the two root just now, which is apoplast and also the simplast root. So water can cross the cortex. Cortex means just now, the picture you see just now, the middle part of the root stem just now, the root just now. Okay, it crossed the simplast or the apoplast root. Okay, so how did it cross? Look at this color. The apoplast is the one is in red, and the simplast is the one in blue. So just now I mentioned earlier on, you must understand simplast is the water that has been transported from cell to cell via the plasmodesmata. Okay, that's why it goes through like this. Okay, whereas for the apoplast, it is been transferred, water been transported from cell to cell wall without even crossing the cell itself. So that's why you can see the red color only goes to the cell wall itself. Okay. However, when it reach at the endodermis, where there is Casparian strip, right? This Casparian strip is very important. It is waxy. Waxy means it does not allow the penetration of the apoplast movement just now. Kan air tadi ikut cell wall tadi kan. But once dah sampai dekat endodermis, dia ada barrier kat situ. So macam mana tu? So what happened to this water that goes to this root? So it has to cross. So it has to cross and then change into what? Change into symplastic root. So it blocks the apoplastic and then forces the water that passively moving from to the apoplast to cross the plasma membrane and then enter the style. Style means the middle part through what route? Through the symplastic route. Faham Okay. So this is the same thing. So if you want to write in elaboration, this is one way of looking at it. Number 1 sampai number 5 ni. Angka penuh ni kalau dapat ya. Then water movement, water ascend from roots to shoot. Ascend means dia naik. Macam mana dia naik? Through this xylem. So how does it happen? It only happens when there is transpiration. No transpiration, no movement lah. But when there is transpiration, why? Because water loss occur at where? At the leaf. So bila benda tu berlaku, so there is imbalance, right? Air tak cukup ke atas, so the water has to be pulled up in order to compensate that loss. So transpired water must be replaced by water transported up from the roots. So how does the water transport being carried? Through the xylem cell. So ada banyak features, right? If you have come across this feature, Alhamdulillah. Still recall back from 5 years, there are two important cells. One is called the vessel member, which is very common. Usually they have this what they call perforated walls of that cell, which means very lignified. Memang betul-betul act like macam pipe air. Whereas another one is called the trachea. The trachea ni dia ada macam hujung dia tempered end. Okay, tempered end, and then it has pits. Pits ni ada lubang-lubang kat tepi sisi dia. So that is how. So normally this trachea normally it will located side by side with the vessel member. Why? Now it is important because why? Because when water movement it can be very fast, right? So this xylem cell ni wujud untuk control. Yang air deras-deras boleh naik yang besar, part besar. Tapi air yang dapat tempat sisi-sisi yang bergerak secara kiri atau kanan tu, dia akan gerak ikut trachea tadi. Right? And then perforation plate is also allow water to flow impeded. Unimpeded means dia tak ada halangan. So it goes upwards. Yang senang ya. So basically, again, you refer to question number 3 and number 9. This is the answer. Yeah, how does water move in plant? Okay, water is pulled up in the xylem in the form of xylem sac. By what mechanism? This is what they call pack mechanism: transpiration, adhesion, cohesion, and tension. Okay, so transpiration mesti tulis occur when there is water loss from the stomata, create a negative tension in the xylem. When there's a negative tension, okay, so dia akan pull. So tension will extend downward from the leaves to the roots, causing the hydrogen bonded water molecule to pull upward through the xylem. And this act as the continuous column to replace the water loss. So sebab kenapa continuous column? Sebab tadi ada perforated tadi plate tadi. So transpiration drives the water transport. No transpiration, no water transport. You ingat balik tu. Ataupun reduce water transport. So water evaporate from the leaves to the stomata, creates a tension in the water column in xylem. So water is replaced. Water replacement is drawn in through the roots upwards. This one also shows how it happens at the leaf. So you have to look at the question, and this is the answer given. So what does actually the transmission, adhesion, cohesion, tension mechanism explain about? Right. So basically, tengok macam mana pokok setinggi 100 meter pun dapat air secukupnya. Because of this, because of the transpiration, adhesion, cohesion, and tension. So water is more pulled upward by negative pressure in the xylem. Because why? Because of the transpiration. So transpiration will provide the pull, and that the cohesion of water due to the hydrogen bonding between water molecules. So it will pull all the entire length of the xylem from shoots to roots, to the roots. So air outside the leaf is drier. So what does it happen? Because of that, it lowers the water potential than the air inside the leaf. So when that happen, kan ingat now I want to explain to you what is water potential. So it is actually what they call satu characteristic of water. It shows that the more negative water potential, the more water wants to go to the area. Katalah cell A tu water potential dia negative 200. And only they measure inside PSI. So what happened was that let's say negative 200 psi cell A. Kalau cell B negative 50 psi sahaja. So where does the water go? Dia akan pergi kat mana? Negative 200 ataupun negative 50? Cell A atau cell B? Dia akan pergi yang mana? Water potential yang sangat negatif, which means very low. So it would definitely go from B to A. Okay? From minus 50 tadi ke minus 200 ya. So that is water potential. So you kena imagine water potential ni macam dia seorang macam pemurah. It's a very generous molecule. Dia pantang tengok tempat yang tak cukup air, dia akan pergi kat situ. Right? Ingat itu So water potential. So it will diffuse down water potential gradient and then exit the leaf via the stomata. So transpirational pool on xylem sap will transmit all the way from the leaves to the root tips and even into the soil solution. And these are facilitated by the cohesion and adhesion. Right? Still remember these two characteristics in your part 1, remember physical characteristic of your water molecule, dia ada cohesion, ada adhesion. Lepas tu dia surface tension. Betul tak? And most important thing because why? Sebab dia ada hydrogen bond. Okay. So cohesion of water because the hydrogen bond between each other, right? So that's why they can pull that column of xylem sap from above. Adhesion, meaning that the water molecule can stick to the hydrophilic wall of the xylem, which will able to offset the force of gravity. Sebab tu dia boleh naik. Sebab tu dia negatif pressure. Alright, so xylem sap ascend by bulk flow. Nanti kita akan cerita juga balik tentang kaitan dia dengan bulk flow juga dalam translocation. Tapi saya tunjuk gambar sahaja benda ni. And then what are the factors that will affect the ascent of xylem sap? Ascent means how it carries up. One is transpiration rate. Very important. Transpiration means water loss. Where does it occur? At the leaf. So these are the important factors that produce negative pressure in the leaf that will exert a pulling force on the water in the xylem, and it will pull the water into the leaf. And then another factor is the water potential gradient. Okay, remember from cell B to cell A, depending on the value of the water potential just now. So water moves from low to high negative value, okay, by process of osmosis. Okay, so dia akan pergi tempat lebih lagi negative value. Ingat, by the process of osmosis. In exam, please make sure when you write this one about regarding water potential, how does the water move? At the end of sentence mesti ada osmosis. Tak ada osmosis, the word nanti kan memang potong markah. Right, another factor is the root pressure. Now, root cell pumps mineral ion from the soil into the xylem of the vascular cylinder. It will lower the water potential. When the water potential becomes lower, means more negative, so water will flows in from the root cortex, and this will push the xylem sap up. Okay, so kena faham ada 3 faktor yang kita kena consider untuk bagi dia air naik ke atas dalam xylem tersebut. So this is another explanation. So you can see involved about water potential. You can see that the sign here is negative 0.15. Another one here is negative 10. So which one is more lower? So kena tengok yang ni lah kan. Okay. So transpiration produce negative pressure in the leaf, exert pulling force on water in the xylem, pulling water into the leaf. So ingat ada satu, kalau dia 3 markah kan tulis 3. Tapi as usually normally you have 6 marks normally, the point tertinggi lah. Now another condition is called guttation, means the water droplet exude from the tips of grass blade or leaf margin. Kadang-kadang kalau pagi-pagi tengok ada macam kata ada titisan air macam daun ni menangis kan, keluar air mata kat ujung-ujung kan. Sebenarnya ini adalah what they call as gutasi. Gutation. Now how does that happen? Usually when at night, especially when the transpiration is very low, the root cell from the bottom at the root system they still continue pumping mineral oil. Dia tak stop belum lagi switch off engine lagi, dia on aja. Bila dia on, it will continue to lower the water potential. So when it lowers, water will keep on flowing in, okay, and then it will generate the root pressure and then push more and more and more sampai keluar melimpah. Itu ceritanya. So this is kind of what they call causes more water to enter the leaves than it's supposed to be. So this is what resulting as guttation. Okay. And also want to tell you regarding transpiration effect. Okay, what happens when there is no water? Okay, when there is you cannot compensate enough, then you have wilting. Wilting means layu. because of this. So you can see the one on my left side here, the picture with the laser pointer here, it shows that enough water. Whereas on the right side here, when there is not enough water to compensate when the setting. So transpiration here is very, very important. Okay. It also results in evaporative cooling, which will lower the temperature and at the same time will prevent the degeneration of the enzymes involved in photosynthesis. So transpiration rate are influenced by 4 important factors, which are temperature or air movement or wind speed, humidity, as well as light intensity. Now, bear in mind, in exams, do not put the word light only. Potong markah, kena tambah sikit intensity. Alright. So, these are the one example. Okay, again, you refer to the question. When you see the question, it's like this. Inilah answer dia. Okay. So, you can see high temperature will lead to what? So, you have to explain. Alright. We just mean high temperature, they say water loss. No, okay, you must do this. High temperature will lead to high transpiration rate. Why? Because there are movement, there are high kinetic energy or kinetic movement of water molecule which diffuse faster. Can I explain? Okay. Air movement, when it increases, you also increase the transpiration rate due to what? Because when water molecule passes out from the leaf, it will try to maintain the stick concentration gradient for diffusion. Low humidity is required to increase the transpiration rate. Okay, means become more humid, less humid. So you can see why when there is humidity, high humidity, your transpiration rate is much lower. And then high light intensity will cause the stomata will open and also to allow gas exchange for photosynthesis at the same time, also to release or to give away water. Right. So other internal factors also affecting the transpiration, such as number of leaves. More leaves means we provide bigger surface area for stomata and then also for greater water loss. And then number of stomata, more stomata means more pores for transpiration to be carried out. Then size of the leaf itself. So the bigger the leaf, the size of the surface area means transpire faster compared to the leaf is smaller surface area. And of course, presence of plant cuticle. There are plants that do not have waxy cuticle. When there is waxy cuticle, means you will try to reduce the transpiration rate. Because why? They not reduce water loss. But if there is no waxy cuticle, so tendency for evaporation is much higher. Yeah? So measurement of transpiration rate can be carried out using photometer. Now, if I want you all, kalau boleh nanti after this session, you pergi tengok dalam Google search, cari type this measurement of transpiration rate using photometer, tengok images ataupun tengok cara-cara macam mana how does transpiration is being able to be calculated or to measured. Okay, alright. So usually they will use the chutes and then insert into that particular photometer so they can actually measure the rate of transpiration, right? And they will come out and plot the graph in this way. Yeah? And usually it will be affected by you put the light source near the leaf atau you carry out the fanning, right? Ataupun you buat macam-macam je lah nak tengok dia punya result ya. And this is important why? Because pernah keluar dalam exam. Okay, alright. So stomata. Now the next one is we're going to talk about how does the role of stomata plays very important role in transpiration. Okay, it regulates the rate of transpiration. Okay, so this is how what they call microscopy. Yes, electron microscopy show the stomata opening and the stomata close. Right, so 90% of water escape through stomata, and each stoma flanked by or it has comprised of gut cell, and this gut cell can control the diameter of the stoma by changing the shape. And there are two ways of changing, one through physical context, another one is through chemical context. So we look at physical context, especially on the gut cell, okay, in terms of their turgidity. Okay, when they are turgid, means the stoma will open. When they are not turgid means when the stoma closed, the gut cell become flaccid. Okay. So pair of gut cell, they are in pairs, normally will buckle outward when they are turgid. And how does this thing involve? Because the presence of cellulose microfibril, which are found in the wall that can resist stretching and compression. So these two gut cells attach to the tips, so they can increase the length and causes the buckling. Buckling means terbuka lah, right? So ingat balik kalau nak explain pasal stomach open, make sure you mention the gut cell becomes turgid. Okay, when the stomach close, then the gut cell becomes flaccid. Okay, this is in terms of explaining in physical way. In terms of chemical context, okay, what actually control the opening and closing is because of the uptake and loss of potassium ion. Okay, because why? Because gut cell ni very dependent on the potassium ion itself. K plus. So if you look at the picture carefully, you see the red dot here, alright? So it is more found in the gut cell, alright? So meaning that water will go to where the water potential is very low because it's already concentrated, because potassium ion dah sangat tinggi kat dalam tu. So what happen? So air akan pergi kat tempat yang mana lebih pekat, right? So dia akan buat gut cell tu turgid. So itu yang akan bengkak. Whereas akan membuka lah the pores. Whereas on the other hand, if let's say the potassium ion is more on the outside, right? So water will goes out, so the cell becomes flaccid. So it will close. Okay. So opening of stomata, this is the explanation here. So baca ya. Alright. Then closing of stomata pun sama ya. So we all depending on the role of potassium ion. So there are some adaptation of plants in order to reduce transpiration. So features dia berbeza-beza. Contohnya macam cactus ni. Instead of producing broad leaves, okay, because they live in arid climate. Arid climate means dry climate, where they are exposed to wind and also high light intensity, high temperature. So that normally will affect the transpiration rate. Okay, so in order to reduce this transpiration rate, so sometimes they have to have adaptation. So how they do it is that by instead of producing the broad leaves, they have spines saja. Alright. Same goes with some other plants. For example, this particular plant here, okay, in order to overcome wind, dry wind to shelter, so they normally put the stomata under lower leaf surface and then in depression, means dia melekuk kat dalam. Okay, because dia tak nak kalau dia expose nanti buka aja air keluar habis. Now, we have finished already in transport of water. So, kita proceed dengan transport of organic nutrients. Organic nutrient in this case is basically sugar lah. Right? So, translocation is the word. We don't use the word transport of water or what. So, in this way, translocation is the transport of organic nutrient, which is the phloem sap in the plant. So, phloem sap here is an aqueous solution, mostly comprised of sugar, right, sucrose, which travels from sugar source to sugar sink. Okay, source to is normally at the leaves, sink is normally at the roots or other parts. So kalau tengok gambar clearly, so phloem is the very important tissue cells that involved in translocation, right? Because we can see the picture here, you have the sieve tube, okay, and there is the companion cell background, alright, and also have a perforated end plate macam tadi yang kita tengok dalam xylem. Xylem tadi ada apa dia? Tadi ada dua benda kan, which are what are they? Vessel member and trachea, right? Whereas phloem, they have sieve tube and companion cell, alright. So how does that happen? Now, firstly, you must understand how does plants make food on their own. Buat bekalan, buat sendiri. So how they do it is that because when the leaves already conduct dapat photosynthesis. If you remember the reaction, the chemical reaction, right? Carbon dioxide campur dengan apa lagi? Campur dengan carbon dioxide, campur dengan proses apa tadi dalam chemical reaction in order to produce sugar. Carbon dioxide dengan light kan. Then they produce sugar as well as water. Kan? They release water in this sense kan. So CO2 plus water if I'm mistaken, right? So they akan form sugar. So from sugar nanti kena ingat balik nanti this is how they do it. So movement of sugar source to sugar sink. So sugar source is an organ that is a net producer of sugar when the mature leaves lah. Okay. So mature leaves normally shoots normally mature leaves dia akan conduct photosynthesis semua tu, dia akan dapatkan sugar. Okay, mana pergi lepas tu? It has to go somewhere, right? So once it has to go somewhere, it will go into the sieve tube tadi. But as you all know already, sieve tube ni dia bukan main masuk macam style xylem terus ke bawah macam tu. It has to be some pressure to force it down. Ikut gravity. So macam mana tu? Dia perlukan hikmat air. So tengok tak arrow yang mana biru ni kan. Okay. So this will normally allows what they call as positive pressure. Yang tadi kalau air tadi negative pressure, right? So dia akan allow positive pressure untuk force the sucrose downwards, right? With the help of water and then reach at the sink. So a sugar sink is where the organ where you have the storer of sugar. So conceptually, sugar must be loaded into the sieve tube members before being exposed to the sink. Right? So in order to move that, apa pathway dia? Macam mana dia jalan? Dia ikut RNR ke jalan dalam? Macam itulah. So sugar moves by symplastic and also apoplastic pathway. Ingat balik dah symplastic and apoplastic pathway. Okay, ingat balik recall ya. So these are the same. Okay, they also require active transport. Okay, for phloem, they involve active transport. For xylem, because of water, they do not require active transport. They require osmosis, which is a passive diffusion. Correct? Okay. So we're going to explain this further, but this is a good way to read and understand how does this thing happen. Okay, and then how do you prove that there is one type of pressure, one type of flow? How do you call it? They call it a pressure flow model. Okay, to test the pressure flow hypothesis, so researchers use aphid. Aphid is a type of insect which have what they call a stylet. Mouthparts dia ada stylet macam injection, ada needle. So this one will penetrate at the sieve tube. So this insect is very smart. It goes to any particular plant and then insert. Okay, dia injected dia punya mulut tu kat dalam tu, pandai memang ngam-ngam dekat bahagian sieve tube. Dari situlah dia dapat gula dia. Right? Dan kalau terlalu banyak, tengok kat bawah tu, tengok sap droplet itu keluar, mencurah-curah So usually what the researcher did was that sieve tube pressure force feed this aphid. They can be surveyed from the stylet. So patahkan dia jarum tu, patahkan nanti keluar macam ni. Right? Tengok I punya laser pointer ya. So dia boleh buat eksperimen kat situ je. So researcher will measure the flow and also the sugar concentration of the sap from the stylet at different point between the source and the sink. Daripada pucuk tu sampai ke bawah dia measure. Apa jadinya? So what is the result? So the closer the stylet was to the sugar source, the faster the sap flowed, and the higher was its sugar concentration. So kalau sugar source mean yang dekat atas kali, so sugar dia sangat tinggi. So what does it say? So researchers boleh buat conclusion. They said that the sap moves through a sieve tube by what they known as bulk flow. And this require what kind of pressure? Driven by positive pressure. Right? So that's why this pressure flow model explain how does the phloem sap flows from the source to the sink. So this is a very strong case in order to explain the pressure flow for the mechanism of translocation in flowering plants. Okay, so we talk about pressure flow. So pressure flow ni penting pernah keluar dalam exam banyak kali. Okay, so you refer dalam soalan tu macam mana gaya soalan dia. So basically it's very simple. Is that you need to draw them. Understand? One, you need to draw the sieve tube of the phlegm. Another one, you draw the vessel, which is the xylem. Okay? And then one part, the sugar source. And then the sugar sink kat bawah. So, dia kena tahu lukis arrow sebab dia nak tulis tu. So, number one kat sini, the green dots ni means loading of sugar. It's the sugar. So, loading of sugar into the sieve tube. What happened? It will reduce the water potential inside the sieve tube. Means makin pekat. So, this cause the tube to take up water. Dia punya neighboring tu, neighbor dia, to go inside by the process of osmosis. Sebab air kan dia pemurah. Dia pantang tengok mana yang pekat. Dia akan pergi kat situ. So, this uptake of water will generate a positive pressure. Dia akan create satu pressure that will force the sap to flow along the tube. So, this pressure will relieve only by unloading the sugar, okay, and the loss of water from the tube at the sink. So, water pula akan pergi balik dekat dia punya xylem balik, sebab dia punya water potential dah meningkat kan. So, that's how. So, the leaf to root translocation, xylem will able to recycle water back from the source to the sink back, from the sink to the source, from the sink to the source. So, dia akan naik balik dan buat benda ni recycle balik lagi. Okay, so this is a very good explanation for you to understand how does the pressure flow tadi. Sama juga dengan mechanism bulk flow juga ya. Untuk how they unload the sugar from the source, daripada daun, sampai dekat batang ataupun dekat stem ataupun dekat akar, which is at the sink, sugar sink. So this is another story. Okay, to look at the picture here. Okay, so active transport will move solute into the sieve tube. Okay, and then water will move in, will increase the turgor pressure because you want to talk about pressure again. And then it will create what they call this bulk flow. Pressure will push the solute by bulk flow between source and sink. Okay, right? And then the pressure solute concentration start to decrease between source and sink. And then eventually the solute will be able to unload it into the sink cell, then lowering the water potential. So once they lower the water potential, water will follow. So itu cara dia ya. So inilah ceritanya. So bila ada dalam soalan keluar, right? For example, talking about how you explain or describe mechanism of bulk flow or pressure flow in sugar, right? So you have to mention in two scenarios. One is what happened at the source, another one what happened at the sink. Okay? So you cerita sugar loaded into sieve tube. Kena mention sieve tube, yeah? And then what happen when this happen? It will provide high concentration of sugar. So water potential becomes lower. So when it becomes lower, water will move from xylem into the phlegm tube. By the process of what just now? Process of osmosis. Okay. And when that happens, it will increase the turgor pressure or pressure potential. When loss of water will have nowhere to go, so they can push the sugar down to the sink, yeah. And then once reached at the sink, the sugar will then be unloaded into the sink cell, and then becomes more negative. Then what happens is that eventually they become less concentrated compared to the fluid in the xylem. So when that happen, water will flow back into the xylem from the phlegm. Then it goes back up again. Okay. So kita dah kat penghujung. So I hope that once you have already learned about this transport, dua saja you nak kena fokus, uptake of water and also uptake of organic nutrients ya. Satu, gunakan transport water biasa, gunakan xylem. Satu lagi, translocation ya, gunakan phlegm, right? Okay, so bring home assignment, baca soalan tu, familiarize with the question and then look at the marks, and you are able to look at some of the slideshow tadi. Ada dia punya answers kat situ ya. Alright, thank you.